Here, got all my stuff. And so I'm not really sure I've got a good monologue today. I've got like puff all over me from the puppy. There's, like we have the new puppy, and she's got a bunch of puff. And so, it gets all over your clothes and everything. There was, I'm actually glad that somebody had posted something like on a former bird site where they said something like, I don't really trust anybody unless they've got animal fur on them. Like, oh, okay, that makes me feel a little bit better anyway, because I probably have animal fur probably all over me, just from transporting the little critter around. So today I had seen, or not today, but like just all of what's gone on over the last few days or so, at least from spending. And I don't like to tear into too much in terms of politics, but sadly politics has been like crammed down everybody's throat no matter what you want to do. It doesn't seem to matter. Like, you can't really avoid it. No matter what you do or what topic you talk about, you can't really talk about the weather. Someone eventually is going to jump in with some kind of political nonsense, and it's like, okay, well, that's fine. I mean, we can do that. So in this one, I'm going to just break with tradition, and I'll just allow it. And like, all right, fine. The only deal is that you can't start going in there spamming the hell out of me about like, not the topics that'll like get me kicked off of TikTok live again, like, just because people get all upset about that kind of stuff. So I don't really care personally. I mean, I'll talk about virtually anything, but the people who run the internet and the people who run TikTok, they have this big bugaboo about that kind of stuff. So just kind of how it is, I suppose. But anyway, I had seen, like, we all saw it, and like, how many people think that there's going to be any actual spending cuts? Probably none. In fact, it's going to be just continue to get worse. And I wrote an article back in like August, and I said, yeah, there's not going to be any cuts. The debt's just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger, and the younger people that are out there, and again, younger is a relative term, so that's, at this point, it's like anybody under 55, right? Like, I mean, we don't think about it like that, but it's true. Think of how many like millennials now are still just trying to get their lives in order, and that's not good. You don't want to have something like that. But and of course, on top of that, it's also millennials trying to get their lives in order while at the same time having to try and prop up this entire system. Like, that's so, and then they're expected to take care of their parents and so on. Like, oh, I don't know that it's going to work out really well. I think a lot of boomers, like, I did a video a while back where I talked about that with the boomers, where it's like, there's going to be that conversation where, they're going to say, hey, we need to move in with you and you need to take care of us. And their millennial kids or Gen X kids are going to say, okay, where am I going to put you? Because many of them aren't going to be in that position to like buy them an extra house or build the apartment above the detached garage kind of thing, like back in the 80s. It's not going to be like that for a lot of folks. For many people, it's not going to be like that. So, that just seems like it's going to be tricky. So, all that said, like, I don't think any of the spending is going to go away. I don't think any of that's going to go away. There's not going to be many people, I don't imagine, because it's holiday weekend. People are really not out, so I just did this because I had the time. And howdy to you too. Let's see here. Well, I'm having to scroll through this. There's a whole bunch of stuff that popped up, and then a whole bunch of stuff that went away. Frankly, it goes too fast for me. I'm just not that quick. But and I'm not sure how long I'm going to be on. Really for it, largely because, and this isn't a complaint, but it's like anybody who's followed my work regularly, that most of the stuff I produce now is seen by almost nobody, right? Like, I mean, they don't go anywhere. Videos go nowhere. There's a ton of videos that I've done recently, and pretty much nobody sees them. I don't mean like, I mean, hey, it's great for the people who do follow me and who go to look, but out of 40,000 odd people that follow my work, maybe only a couple hundred anymore are seeing anything. So which means, and out of that couple hundred, the reality is maybe only 20 people or so actually really see anything. So, or at least, watch to the end or something like that, because they can always tell with the comments. Like where guys will go and they'll start commenting on something, but then it's addressed like 3 minutes into the video. I addressed something like that, but you didn't stay that long. You only saw the first 10 seconds, and then you just assumed that I didn't cover that. Like, well, I can't help you with that. So, and that does happen. It's sad, but it does happen. So, well, one other thing people are seeing, it's the numbers. So just the stats. When I look at the stats on like the content creator side, I can see the stats, and the numbers don't lie. There's not very many people, and the thing is that a lot of the stuff that I talk about isn't really exciting, and it's not. I mean, like, I'm not. I don't think that I'm somebody I'm not. No, a lot of stuff I talk about isn't really terribly exciting. It resonates with some people, and I'm also kind of impatient, and that's the truth. That's the truth. I am very impatient. Meaning that, like, probably the biggest challenge that I personally have is listening to a bunch of people. It doesn't make any difference what channel, what platform you're on, all screaming about how they want solutions and they want them right now. And then when someone pops up and says, here's a solution, and that solution doesn't end with them becoming a billionaire, it's like, then it's like, well, that's not a real solution. And I've talked about that a number of times here, and that's really frustrating. It's like, dude, you realize that most people aren't going to become billionaires, and you realize that a lot of the billionaires that are out there, they're fake. These are fake billionaires. Think of it like this. Let me really hammer this fake billionaire thing for those of you out there who don't understand how this works. If you personally, you standing there, watching me, and you're like, I want to be a billionaire. If you had $1 billion, like if I decided to just go into your bank account and put $1 billion, let's say, or the orange internet money equivalent of whatever that is, 10,000 coins, into your wallet right now, and you had $1 billion currently at this very moment, what would your first impulse be? Go in the comment section and tell me, what would your first impulse be? Because I'm guessing that somewhere the impulse isn't going to be, I would go around the world and try and figure out how to make another $1 billion. Like most normal people, that's not going to be what they do. They're not going to say, oh my gosh, I'm going to try and figure out how to make another $1 billion because my life will be 3% better if I make another billion versus the billion that I already have, right? And I've talked about this before, like wealth maxes out at a certain point. Beds only get so big and soft. Houses only get so big and beautiful. Cars only ride down the right-hand side of the road so nice. Pieces of ass only get so good looking. At a certain point, it can only be marginally better, and so you have the fake billionaire problem. Most of these so-called billionaires that are constantly trying to hustle you and constantly trying to hype you into buying this product or that product, or like, it's because they're fake. They have to keep hustling you. They have to keep you doing something to keep them rich, because they owe $1 billion, or they owe billions, plural, of dollars to bankers who conjured it from nothing. This is the fake billionaire phenomenon. So a bunch of, like a lot of people in their mind, it's like, well, if the solution doesn't end with me being a new billionaire, it's sort of like, think of it like this. It's a poor person's vision of what they think a rich person lives like. I just saw somebody else cover this, and I was really happy someone did that, where they talked about they showed this like absurd lifestyle. Like, it's like, dude, even rich people can't, like, dude, you, like, there's a house, let me give you, for perspective, just for perspective, here in Texas, in South Texas, where I live, a little old lady, one of my customers, passed away. And it was really unfortunate because she was really nice. She was 90, and she was really, really nice. She lived in this very beautiful, what I thought was an extraordinarily beautiful home. It was about, I don't know, it wasn't huge. It was like maybe 3,500 square feet. Not a huge palatial estate, not a McMansion. Rancher house, brick, on 6 acres of landscaping. So landscaped acres, 6 landscaped acres. You know, for, if you don't really have if you have a hard time picturing that, that's like a big park, okay? And all the trees were in good shape. All the bushes, the shrubberies, like everything was like manicured and perfect. She spent $5,000 per month, and that was with a full-time guy just to maintain the lawn on her property. The lawn cost $5,000 a month, and and trimming the hedges and so on. But I mean, like, not the actual like, they would have to bring in other people to do their stuff. So just the actual maintenance of the lawn itself was costing her $5,000 a month. Now, she had that kind of money. You'd never know it because they were very humble people, but she had that kind of money, and that house, sold for $1.5 million after the fact, right? Now, was it worth that? Not really. And even she probably would have agreed with me that, like, it probably wasn't really worth that, but somebody paid it. Fair enough, whatever. But that person who bought it now has somewhere in the neighborhood of, with the interest rates, with the payments and everything else, somewhere in the neighborhood of about $15,000 to $20,000 per month of house. Per month, right? Okay. So now let's take just that and then go into the so-called, and that's just, remember, that's a regular house with a regular yard, okay? Now let's carry that over to the fake billionaire status, right? Where these people are living these ridiculous lifestyles that are absurd, that are stupid, that nobody can really actually maintain that stuff. Leona Helmsley, I've told the story before. Leona Helmsley, the so-called witch of Wall Street, when her estate was for sale in Greenwich, Connecticut, and I think they originally wanted like $150 million for this house. And everyone I talked to, and I remember, and I don't usually go into this kind of stuff, but I do know people that legitimately have a lot of money. I don't go into it very often, but I do know a few people. And I remember talking to one that was actually fairly well off. One of the guys that I know pretty well, and he does actually have quite a bit of money. Not fake money, but like actually is part of the producer class and does have money. And even he said, dude, even if you gave me that house, like for free, even if you just signed the deed over and gave me her house, I wouldn't keep it. I would find the nearest sucker I could find and offload it to him, because 40 acres of landscaping, like an indoor pool, an outdoor pool, water features, all this, like there was like a full-time staff of people that cost you $500,000 a year to maintain that property. Didn't include the property taxes, didn't include like any of this, like none of this stuff was included, right? It's like the MC Hammer house kind of thing. It's the Jeff Bezos house. Like these ridiculous numbers that the vast majority of even people who are wealthy would not pay that. They would go, no, I'm not interested, because it's just too much money. So these videos where I was going with that was just, I saw this video where this guy was pointing out like most people, even who are wealthy, would not live this type of ridiculous, absurd, everyday type lifestyle that would just bleed away. Imagine spending something like $50,000 a day on personal lifestyle. Most people aren't going to do that. Even people who have a lot of money, because you usually, like I said, if you're one of these fake billionaires, you owe billions of dollars to somebody, usually bankers, okay? And if you owe billions of dollars to bankers, and you're spending $50,000 a day on your personal lifestyle, and then jet setting, and then like all this other stuff, it's like you're burning through a lot of money that you probably owe them. And at at any point, as with, I would point out with any billionaires who borrow money at that level when you borrow, just for those of you who don't know this, in those contracts, they usually, in those contracts, there's also an NDA that says that you're not allowed to talk about what's in that contract. You follow me? Okay, I mean, some of you are already starting to get the gears turning. If you're like, oh yeah, hey, we'll lend you this $5 billion for this, whatever it is, in that contract is probably an NDA that says you're not allowed to even talk about what you're agreeing to in this contract. And at any moment, if you say something we don't like, if you do something we don't like, we're calling this note. And you need to come up with all this money that they know you don't have. They know it's not possible. So that's why you get these like proactive fake billionaires that most other people, like I said, you personally, standing there looking at your phone or sitting there watching me, if you had $1 billion, what would you do? It wouldn't be go and make billions of dollars. It would be like, oh man, I'd take some time off. I'd go do something. I'd pay off my house. I'd do this. I'd do that. Like you would do stuff that like was fun, because the whole point of making the living is to live a life, right? Like, I mean, that's like the whole point of it. Not to belabor that, but I just, like, it's fresh in my mind because I just went through this with some boomer. I made an offer on a property, and this is a little while back, but I made a full price offer, full price, didn't question nothing. Property been for sale for like 5 years. No one even looked at it. I said, done, I'll do it. Full price, let's do this. And he agreed. And then in typical boomer fashion, it wasn't enough. And then changed the deal, we want more. I'm out. This just happened. This was like, I don't know, 6-8 months ago, something like that. And like I said, I don't really talk about a lot of that stuff, just on my, just the stuff that I'm doing, because it really isn't relevant. Like I said, I generally try to stay more principle oriented and stuff that like, as opposed to individual stuff. But I'm just telling you, like, that actually happened. And I'm like, really? And I was telling a friend of mine just the other day about I was relaying the whole story. And he's like, you're kidding. I said, no, dude, I made full price. Like literally everything the guy wanted, I offered that. And it would have worked out. In fact, his agent, who was also his son-in-law, was telling him, like, dude, why would you turn this down? Why would you do this? Why would you go out? Why would you mess up a deal where you have a guy who's there offering you literally everything you've asked for, and you turned it down because to you, in your mind, in your brain, it wasn't enough, even though it's like that was what you were asking for, and you hadn't had anybody looking at this place for 5 years. You're out of your mind. Yeah, that's the craziness that goes on with all of that. So, so yeah, I mean, like most of us would do, but the reason it wasn't enough was because it was like, well, I wanted to take that money and go do something. Like, well, yeah, but I mean, it's like, why are you trying to make more money? Especially with these guys that are up in their 70s. You want to make more money. Why? Well, to do stuff I want to do. Dude, if you're in your 70s and you already have a bunch of money and you're not doing the things you want to do, then why did you bother doing any of that? Like, right? I mean, like think about it, right? If you're already there, like, dude, I got to tell you, if I'm in my 70s, and I have the money, I'm going to go do what I want to do. And like making a bunch of money on something is not going to be probably on my radar at that point. I'm going to be busy doing lots of other things that I can think of that just have nothing to do with trying to make a bunch of money. I saw somebody point out today, they're like, I said that I was by Unusual Whales. They said something like that per Wall Street Journal, that it feels like that the majority of Americans now feel like there's a recession going on. You mean because there's a recession going on? Right? You mean it's almost as though there's a recession. Like, how are you guys just now figuring this out? Like, in Wall Street Journal, are you just now seeing this? Are you guys that out of touch? My God, man. All right, let's see here. There's a bunch of comments. I'm probably going to get a bunch of hate for this one, for bringing this stuff up. I'm so used to hate mail at this point. I get nothing but hate mail. What do I think people are seeing them? I don't know. I can speculate. As far as my posts, is that what you're talking about? I can speculate, and I speculate it's probably the content, the stuff. Like I said, I mean, I'm not exactly the most up and exciting kind of guy. I'm pretty boring, but But I think that maybe that's some of it, is that yeah, I'm boring. I'm not very interesting to listen to. I suppose I am for some people, but for the majority of people, no, they're not going to listen to me. But also because I think that some of the topics that the key words that I say, TikTok doesn't want to get banned in the US. And right now, this is the truth. Nobody wants to hear this, but this is the reality. TikTok literally has to keep one guy happy. And we all know who that one guy is, because he's the one guy who keeps giving the extension on the TikTok sale. It's literally one fucking guy. I'm gonna get myself in trouble. I am back in the garage. Yeah, I can. There's no water out of my property, so I still haven't dug a well yet. It's on my list of endless list of things to do. They've been funneling me to rage bait. Let's see here. Fix my village. Yeah, that's what I'm saying, right? Like that's what a normal person would do. A normal, rational, I think, level-headed, at least. And I'm not even talking about intelligent, because what you're seeing here isn't intelligence. Just so you guys know, I know that there's a lot of guys who are like, oh my God, no. You're not seeing intelligence here. You're not seeing intelligence here. Don't mistake intelligence for experience. Okay. I'm not very intelligent. I do have a lot of experience. That's the difference. That's what you're seeing. And when you see when someone has a lot of experience used to be called wisdom, and wisdom comes with age. And those of us who, when we finally age, one of the gifts that we get is wisdom. Right along with having to go to the doctor and get one of those special visits. Anyway, but yeah, fix my village. That's what a logical person would do, right? A logical person would be like, oh, I would fix things. I would improve my life. I would improve the lives of my friends, my community and stuff. That's what a logical person does. They don't, pay off my house. They don't say, oh, good, I'm going to use this money to go and get involved in leverage buyouts, right? Sorry about that. International bonds, gold, and BRICS capital, yeah. International bonds, gold, and BRICS capital. Are you asking me a question? Find workers and start working on my dream projects. Yeah, R&D. That's actually kind of the stuff what I would do too. There's a bunch of R&D stuff that I would actually do. That I would use that. I would, in addition, that would be fun. Okay, so not trying to do it to just make a big pile of money, but I would do stuff like that because there's a lot of things that I think are kind of cool. Pay off debt because true wealth is not measured in dollars, measured in freedom. I agree. I couldn't agree more. That's actually a very good statement. Dude, you should write a book. I'm not sure how many people would read it. And I don't mean that to belittle your comment. I don't mean that. So don't misunderstand. But I don't know if you notice this or not, but brevity isn't really my strong point. And it's because I can be brief. I can shorten everything up like Nietzsche style. But how many people read Nietzsche? That's the problem, right? I can shorten it up the way that Nietzsche did it. I can be extremely brief if I want to, but then nobody would understand it. So you have to do this if I did any book and stuff, it would actually be fiction. I read predominantly nonfiction, but if I were to ever write anything, it probably would be fiction. Or I would do movies. Actually, I would direct for short films or something like that. I do write a lot of stuff. I just mostly write fiction. Start small, go volunteer, local animal hall. Yeah, that's what I mean. Let's see here. What else? 50 Cent bought Mike Tyson's house. Why am I living? That's what I mean. Right? I mean, it's the. What was that? The MC Hammer house, right? From back in the 90s. For those of you older enough to remember this, MC Hammer, they did that huge house. There was also a lot. I'll tell you this other story. Maybe some of you already know this story, but there was every now and again, you'll see those. Sometimes it'll come across on YT and other accounts or other video sites where it'll be a "Where are they now?" kind of thing for lottery winners, right? And some of you already know where I'm going with this because you've probably seen these things. Where it's some guy wins a $10 million lottery and then takes the cash out. So he gets $5 million after the taxes and everything, ends up with something like $3 million in cash. And then goes and buys or builds a $3 million house. right? No, not a second thought as to how are you going to maintain that. Not a second thought as to the probably $60,000 to $80,000 a year in property taxes, unfortunately. Now, property taxes should be zero. They should go away, I agree. But like for the time being, they still exist. So like you have to factor that into your practical reality, right? And while we would love to see them go away, and that would certainly be on my agenda, that would be top on my agenda, would be ending property taxes. And all you have to do to end property taxes is in the NFA. That's it. You know, I mean, you guys have maybe some, I don't know, the TikTok people, you guys haven't really, I think a lot of people, if you follow me only on TikTok and you don't follow me over on Former Bird site, you don't really get the full effect of just how abrasive I actually am in real life. I look all cute and cuddly here, but I mean, I'm a lot more abrasive in real life. And yeah, if you want to end property taxes, you just end the NFA. And if you end it, which is the, I don't know if I can say it on TikTok, but look up the NFA, 1934 NFA. If you type it up, 1934 NFA, it'll bring you up a whole, the Wikipedia is actually pretty accurate, believe it or not. The Wikipedia is pretty accurate to what that says. But you can read that and that will show you 1934, or even on TikTok, just go into the search bar and just type in 1934 NFA, and there will be, I'm sure, somebody who will give you a huge history lesson on it. And if you end that, you end property taxes very quickly. Let's see here. Is like there's rooms that I never went into. Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, that's just it. Like that's what I mean. It's like at a certain point, that's where I was talking about before. You know, whatever, 10 minutes ago. At a certain point, another $1 billion isn't going to do anything in the practical sense. Let's take Elon Musk, for example, right? What is he supposedly worth? $250 billion or something like that? Okay. Is his cornflakes going to taste any different tomorrow morning if he had another $1 billion? No. I mean, at a certain point, it kind of stops mattering. And it's like, what can't you do? I'm talking about on the day-to-day basis. I'm talking about the average. You know, you wake up, and you go take a shower, you get cleaned up, you brush your teeth, you do your hair and something like, and you go out into the world. At a certain point, another big pile of money isn't going to do anything for you on a day-to-day basis. You know what I mean? Like on the normal living a life. So, yeah, at a certain point, it just maxes out. Greed, yeah. I mean, there is something to be said for that too. Like a long time ago, I talked about Ebenezer Scrooge, which is a fascinating character from a literary standpoint. The character Ebenezer Scrooge, Dickens, what he does is actually really intelligent. I'm not going to go into. I don't want to like bore you with this, but like Dickens, what he did was he created a literary device in Ebenezer Scrooge and created a character that quite literally embodies greed. He's like the personification of greed for the sake of greed, and does a really good job of. And that's where that Ebenezer Scrooge character comes from. It's because here's a guy that is like, he's already insanely rich. There's basically nothing he can't do with his money. That's the way it's portrayed, and yet he himself won't even heat his own home. He won't even heat his own home. He won't buy new furniture. He won't burn candles, you know, or like burns a candle for like, right? I mean, like everything about it is just, it's greed for the sake of greed. And that's what, it's an interesting literary device. Boomers for you, yeah, okay. You know, I get a lot of grief from boomers actually. And the thing is that I understand, like, dude, I actually have boomers that follow me too. And I do understand that, like, yes, not all boomers. There are a lot of boomers that are horrified by what they're seeing. There's like 20% of boomers out there that are absolutely terrified by what they see. They see all this and go, oh my God, you know, not only are the next 3 generations like hyper screwed, we're screwed too, because especially this is particularly true for poor boomers, right? We don't hear a whole lot about poor boomers. We hear a lot about the rich boomers that have got a bunch of money in the stock market and blah 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 blah. You know, and they're buying their 7th vacation home. They're buying their 50th SUV. They're at Barrett Jackson buying $2 million triple black Hemi Cudas and Orange County choppers and everything back in the early 2000s. Like that's your stereotypical boomers that we all know about. But there's also about 20% of boomers that are completely broke, that have like nothing, and they are hyper screwed. Right along with the rest of us. And yeah, we don't hear a lot about them, but those people actually see it. They understand it. They do get it, and they go, yeah, this is really, 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 really terrible. And it's all to keep a handful of people in this delusional fantasy of fake money conjured from nothing, which is the truth. Too truthful, I try. You know how you become truthful? At least in my opinion, this is just world according to Axel, but you know how you become, you finally give up and lose respect for pretty much everybody. And then it's like, well, there's no reason not to tell people the truth, because, you know, when you start hating everybody equally, you're like, I don't care. I'm going to tell you the truth. And then whatever, you know, and there used to be something to that. It's why they want people enslaved. It's why they want people in debt. I mean, we've been over this a few times, but like, it's why they want people in debt. They want you to always be in debt, always be owing bankers, always be owing corporations, always be owing, you know, student loans, and I don't know. They want you always in debt, so that way you'll never have an opinion. Opinions are dangerous, especially if they're honest, because there's something magical, I think, that happens when you're actually honest with people, right? Like, because people aren't used to it. They're used to being hustled and lied to, and like, people are really used to that stuff, aren't they? Right? Like a lot of us are used to it. We go into a store and we see the salesman. We already know we're going to hear a pitch, and it's not going to be. It's going to be whatever it was their boss told them to sell, and like, right. We go to a car lot. God forbid, right? We go to a car lot. We know we're going to get hustled. We know we're going to hear a pitch. We know we're going to hear how, I'm going to go in there and I'm going to talk to the manager and we're going to get the best deal possible, and all that stereotypical crap that still mind-blowingly happens to this day. I can't believe that it still happens to this day. I thought that stuff, you know, was like gone 20 years ago, until I went to go replace a car after being hit by an illegal. I went to the car lot, and I mean, I'm not kidding. It was textbook. It was everything wrong with car shopping. It was the inevitable hustle. Then there was the buy this extra package, buy this extra package. Well, if you don't buy this package, then your interest rates is going to be like, it was all of this stuff, right? And even I wasn't even financing it, but you get my point. Like, that was what was happening. And so everybody's used to just being hustled by everybody out there. And then you run into somebody who's honest, and they just tell you how it is, and they're like, I don't care. They give you the finger and move on. There's something magic about that. You know what I mean? Because there's a freedom involved with that. And the thing is that you're actually able to get a, I don't want to say this. You're able to know where you stand with somebody. Thank you for whoever that was. Actually, I'm still getting used to the gift thing that you guys are doing, but whoever that was, thank you very much. But that's, you kind of get what I'm saying, you know, like there's a feel to that when you actually run into somebody who's just telling you the truth, and they don't care if you buy this or not. You know, I mean, that's it. On the rare occasion that I go on sales calls, and it's rare that I'm ever let up to go on sales calls. It's like they don't like me going on sales calls. But on the rare occasions that I do go to sales calls and I talk to customers, I'm so blunt with them that, like, they're either going to buy something or they're not, and that's it. And I already know that walking through the door when I talk to them. And so when I talk to my customers, you know, I just tell them, look, I mean, you can choose to do business with me or choose not to do business with me. I'm going to just tell you what we're going to do. That's it. And then and anything that I'm willing to tell you, I'm willing to put it in writing, and you can hold us to it. It's actionable. So, unlike what you're going to get from a lot of salespeople who go and do sales, where there are salespeople out there that will just make up fantasies for, like, I've run into them. I've fired them. They make up fantasies that the customer, like, dude, we're not going to do any of that for the customer. You need to go back and tell the customer, because I'm not paying you a commission for lying to a customer. Seriously. I mean, I've dealt with that kind of stuff before. I have no idea what that is. But thank you for it. What are your thoughts on the inflation coming from the BBB. Well, yeah, I mean, the inflation won't be felt as much right away. Inflation takes a little while to eventually, because it's top-down inflation, right? So we're not going to, unfortunately, we're not going to get bottom-up inflation. That's actually what needs to happen. Bottom-up inflation, for those of you who don't know, if you just happen to find this account, you happen to see me, bottom-up inflation is Weimar Republic thing. That's where you just send everybody $10 million and say, pay off all your debts with all this worthless money, and we're going to just start over because we can't continue this Ponzi scheme. That's bottom-up inflation, and that's actually what the country needs right now to just purge out all of this bad investment, all of these malinvestments, all of this money all of these fake valuations need to find actual price discovery. And we're not going to see price discovery if you keep bailing it out with endless amounts of billions of dollars of spending like this. So the top-down inflation, which is what we're going to see with the so-called BBB, is going to be, it's all going to go to Wall Street. It's where it's going to make its way. It's going to make its way inevitably to prop up these three hedge funds that own basically all the mega corporations that own everything. Imagine, I was thinking about this the other day. Imagine if in your town, whatever town you live in, doesn't make any difference. We all know the usual suspects. You drive by a strip mall, you already know what's in that strip mall before you even look, right? With the exception of like a few, nail salons or a hair salon or something like that, with the exceptions, or a vape shop or something like that. We pretty much already know what's in that strip center. What would happen, if you think about it in these terms, what would happen if all that spending went away? Or, they'd go out of business. What would happen if you told them, hey, we need to have truth in advertising. Change your sign from whatever, I'm not going to say the name of a company, pick a mega company, and it has to be named after your top shareholder. How many of them would say BlackRock, Vanguard, State Street? That's all it would say. Like virtually everything you see would say BlackRock, Vanguard, State Street, or some derivative thereof. That's where all the money's going to end up going. It's just going to make its way back to that. And, I know that there's going to be a whole bunch of people out there. It's like, oh, my late stage capitalism, et cetera. And again, if you follow my work, you know my thoughts on that already. It's like, I don't even know where to begin with that, because any other ism is going to have a central bank, and any other central bank is going to do the exact same thing. And it doesn't make any difference if it's the Soviet Union or the US. It's the same thing's going to happen. Right now, all we have is the illusion of a private sector, because it's not really private. If government spending went to zero, how many companies would survive? Almost none. That's how bad it is. So, there's nothing. So, yeah, but the inflation that's coming, yeah, it'll be a couple of years down the road. We'll feel it. I would say that the real inflation, if you want to, here's a good way of looking at it. Real inflation, how you can gauge it roughly, it's not always 100%, roughly. Take the S&P, whatever the increase the S&P is, let's say for fiscal 25. Okay, so from fiscal 25 to 26, whatever that increase of the S&P is, that's roughly the real rate of inflation. So if it's 15, 16, 18%, that's what inflation actually probably is 15, 16, 18% or more, depending upon, because remember, the further down the chain you go, the worse your felt inflation actually is, because it hits the poorer people much harder. I know Ron Paul talked about that. I know he talked about that because I remember watching Ron Paul in 2007, him talking about that exact issue. Like, yeah, it hits your poorer and your working class much harder, particularly, and it actually hits, believe it or not, it hits your working class even harder for them, because they haven't resigned themselves yet, right? The working class haven't said, that's it, man. I'm going to sit around and watch video game, right? That's the working class haven't given up yet. So for them, they're getting a third job. They're doing a side hustle. They're doing a side hustle while they're doing the side hustle. They're doing the side hustle while they're doing the other side hustle in between their side hustle. Yeah, so it just crushes your working class. And more importantly, it crushes their spirits, and it destroys your birth rates. Completely annihilates your birth rates. What's number 2 on the list? If you follow my work, you know what number 2 is. Birth rates. Number one is your currency. Number two is your birth rates. And if and that's how you get natural growth. That's your organic growth. Organic growth comes from one place, birth rates. It doesn't come from just making things hyper efficient. You can make everything super duper efficient, but if you don't have any customers, and if you don't have any actual people, any economic activity, all that is people buying and selling stuff. What's an economy? It's just people. It's people doing stuff. It's people engaged in commerce. It's the root word of it. And if they're not engaged in commerce, well, then those people, then you can be as efficient as you want, but you're not going to have any actual organic growth. Your growth comes from birth rates. Right now, the thing is that I haven't done a video on this. Think about it this way, though. I don't want to answer, but let me crash out for a second here on this one, because I got to point this out. Did you know right now, if you actually had a real market and you had closed borders, okay, all things being equal, if the U.S. had closed borders, we're going to talk about just the U.S. for just a second here. This applies to Australia, this applies to the Brits, it applies to everybody. But if you had closed borders, all things being equal, here's what would happen right now in the real world. All of these houses would be going for nothing. They would be having real price discovery of seriously $5,000 or $10,000 cash. No joke. That's not, I didn't misspeak. Seriously, they're not really worth anything because you wouldn't have enough people, you overbuild. So you wouldn't have enough buyers on the back end of that, which means your prices come down, right? This is your basic supply and demand. If you overbuild a market and you have so much supply, but there's no demand, your bottom falls out of your pricing. Okay. So if all of that were to happen, then you'd have a whole bunch of younger people, being able to work 10, 20 hours a week, be able to afford their lifestyle, which means they would, what happens when people only work 10, 20 hours a week and they kind of have all their stuff, right? They get bored. If you're not, assuming you're not using the family court system to completely destroy men, assuming you're not doing that, what does boredom usually cause? Anybody remember power outages back when when you're younger, back in the day, back in the early 2000s or late 90s or something? Oh, there was a power outage. And then what happens 9 months after a power outage? Usually, not always, but usually, a whole bunch of kids are born. Right now, this should be just a huge frenzy of children being produced right now, because that's what should be happening, but it's not. And I have to clean up the way that I would ordinarily say that. Or ordinarily I would say that a lot more unplugged, but I'm cleaning that up. But there should be a lot of that going on right now. And there should be a lot of kids being born, over the next 5 and 10 years. And then that would create your economic boom. That would create your prosperity. Then there'd be oh my God, everything's going great. Well, yeah, everything's going great because there's more economic activity. There's people doing stuff. So that's your number two. And so if you destroy that, which they have, because now everybody's working 3 jobs, well, if you're working 3 jobs, you're not exactly bored, are you? If you're trying to survive, you're not exactly bored. If you're trying to survive and you're man, how am I going to be able to pay for my groceries and my gas this month? You're probably not thinking about having 3 kids, are you? Yeah. Have I belabored that enough? But yeah, that's how that works. So, let's see here. Property tax is yeah, it is. It's absolutely horrible. I keep seeing these things too. It's end property taxes for boomers. And no, why don't you just stop right there? Just end property taxes, because come on, that's bad for everybody. No one owns anything. Yeah, that's what I mean. By 2030, it's a problem because a country is not designed for that. The U.S. is never designed nor intended to be a nation of renters. It's never designed. This is July 5th. This is the day after Independence Day, right? What do we know about Independence Day? I have, and the thing is that I can't even really talk about it too much on TikTok. But yeah, what was that about? Yeah, so, yeah, no, the U.S. was never designed or intended to be a nation of renters, a nation of just endless, taxpayers that are paying something 65%, 70%? I've not heard conflicting numbers. But I think if you actually sat down and figured out how much money you actually pay in compounded taxes, it's nuts. You keep maybe a third of the money you earn when you figure it all out. because you're taxed on your gas, and that's of course after tax money. Like everything is after taxes, so then everything is taxed on top of your taxes. And each one of those businesses that you go to, respectively, is paying taxes as well. I posted this the other day where I talked about how GDP is calculated, and I got a bunch of static from it, like, oh no, it's calculated based on this. No, it's really not, because every business at every level is taxed, and every business is they're recording the volume at every single level, from the manufacturer down to the end user. All of that is factored into GDP. It's fake. It's a lie. They do it. They calculate it based on the convenience of what they need to do to just keep borrowing more money. It's really sad and pathetic. They will go bankrupt. The system of creditors own it all. Yeah, I know. That's the goal. The goal is to just keep pushing people into just endless more debt. So my idea, of course, is to bankrupt the bankers. That's been my idea. You bankrupt the bankers. In fact, it's in the name, bankruptcy. That's in other words, you leave everybody else alone and let the bankers go broke. That's the better solution. What would stop corporations from just buying up all the property if property taxes is gone? So that's an interesting conversation, and that's gut check time for Americans. Specifically, Americans have to have gut check on that one. What is private property and what is not private property? What is that? What do we mean when we say private property? Because I'm pretty sure that what the founders of our country meant was, private property, the property on which you live and you conduct your business and you run your farm and you own it. Maybe you own your 20, 30, 40 acres or something like that, and it's your farm and your family live there and you live there and you're part of the community and so on. Yeah, that's the kind of private property they're talking about. I am supremely confident that the founders of our country were not talking about gigantic monolithic megacorporations printing dollars from nothing from bankers to buy a bunch of property and then call it all theirs and never use it as so-called investment properties. I'm talking to you boomers. I live in Texas. I live in South Texas. I can go down to Houston, into downtown Houston. All the big tall buildings, glass, heat index, the whole bit, 150 million degrees downtown. And there is property down there that hasn't had anything done with it since Texas became a state. Like, that's how far back. Like, nobody's doing anything with it, but it's considered private property. If you're not doing anything with it, like, at a certain point, it's like, dude, come on. If you're not going to do anything with it, the analogy I would give is this. Let's say you're all at a daycare. You are, by the way. This is all a simulation, and I'm trying to talk you through it. You're at a daycare, and you're all doing stuff. All the kids are doing something, and everybody's playing with toys, having a great time. It just sounds like just total chaos of kids yelling, screaming, and having a lot of fun. In the corner is some neglected toy that nobody's playing with, and hasn't played with for the entire time. Like, it's just been sitting there. Some little kid decides they're going to go play with that toy. And now, like, everybody else says, well, we want that too. Or you have some other kid, right, who says, well, hey, hold on, I was going to do something with that. Like, what would you as an adult say? What would any rational adult say? I'm actually asking you, what would any adult say to that kid? They'd say, dude, come on. You were off doing other stuff with all the other kids. You were playing with all the other toys. You were doing everything else. And I'm sorry, but you know what? Go do something else. Because that kid, nobody was playing with it. Everybody was ignoring it. It was there. He started playing with it. He started doing something with it. Okay, the Indians made, Sitting Bull made the argument too. For real. I happen to agree with a lot of the Lakota tribe, by the way. Just philosophically, I happen to agree with a lot of that. I'm not Native American, so I'm British, dude. But I'm just telling you, I happen to agree philosophically with what a lot of the Lakota tribe made the argument for. And no, they shouldn't have had they found gold in the Black Hills, so now let's seize it. Yeah, they shouldn't have done that. That is 100% wrong. Totally. Okay, that actually is wrong. But as far as the idea of, okay, well, this is all our land, okay, Anybody could make, because then you see the problem. Anybody could make that case. They could say like, well, yeah, I'm here now. Planet Earth is my private estate. Come on, that's ridiculous, right? I mean, like, you are all trespassing. Get off of my planet. Like, that's ridiculous. So we have to have that conversation of what exactly is private property versus what exactly is corporate property. Yeah, and I would make the case. This is just, again, world according to Axel, I would make the case that corporations should not be owning land in the United States at all. Any corporation should not be, even your low-level LLCs should not be owning property, owning land in the United States. It can lease it from an American, but it should be in an American's name. It should actually be in their personal name, and it should not be able to be seized by anybody for any reason, including the federal government. I think that there's ways to do that. I mean, I think it would take a debate from people smarter than me. But I do think that it's worth exploring the idea of saying, no more of this corporate-owned stuff. Or if you're going to be a corporation and you're going to own land, your property taxes are going to be much higher. You're going to pay these taxes. Like, well, they'll pass it on in the product. I don't care. They can pass it on the product. They can eat the product. They would do whatever they want. Or the small business, you know, the landowner, the actual guy who owns the land and works on it. Maybe he has his shop on it. He makes a similar product. He doesn't have to pay any taxes because the property's in his name, and so there's zero taxes, which means he's more competitive in the business world. That would be how I would do that. Because the idea of a corporation, which is corporate protection, that's all it is, just a piece of paper. A corporation is not a building downtown. A corporation is a tax status, basically. It's a piece of paper. That's all it really is. And so to own something through through a corporation, which is fine, there's nothing wrong with that inherently, but I think that they should be just taxed a little differently. You know, tax them at a higher rate, tax them at like 10% annually or something like that. Something like that. And then give, that, and then there's zero taxes for any Americans who own their property. There's a number of ways to go about something like that, I think. But in my view, there are ways to do that. But I do think it's a conversation that really should be had, because this idea of endless corporations just claiming ownership of everything and everybody's a permanent renter. Yeah, Adam Smith, Mr. Capitalist himself, the man who literally wrote the book on modern capitalism, and Karl Marx, who actually I think stole his idea, almost word for word if I'm not mistaken, both of them happen to have the same opinion of landlords, and for the same reason, because Marx happened to stumble on the correct answer, which is that, I mean, you can't have people claiming ownership of everything and then wanting rent off of everything unless they've done something to legitimately improve the land. Okay, I mean, like, so if you're somebody who buys some land and then puts an apartment complex up and you build it, right, and you've invested a lot of your capital, hence the term capitalist, you have invested your money in this, okay, well then you deserve to earn a profit, meaning you provide a better product at a better price than your competitor, not just, yell at people because they won't pay higher rents because they're lazy. That's not how you do that. No, so you would just say that, and if it wasn't profitable, then you wouldn't do it. It's really simple. Is complete freedom the entire point? Yeah, no kidding. I'm way behind a bunch of your guys' comments, so let me try and get caught up here. July 14th. Is that when their vote is supposed to be in New York to see what happens with that? I'm indifferent to what happens to New York to the extent that, like, hopefully there isn't a mass exodus down to Texas. Please stay out of Texas. If you screw up Manhattan, please don't move here. Wallow in your own filth. Isn't the property tax the only thing from stopping corporations? 1% owning everything. Yeah, I just covered that, actually. Let's see here. But yeah, and of course, that's to answer that question a little more thoroughly too. That's also, you have to get rid of the idea of banks lending out endless amounts of fiat money. Okay, the fiat money is the really big problem with that. movie Brewster's Millions is a good one that explores. Yeah, it does actually. Brewster's Millions is a brilliant movie. I know it's a remake. The Richard Pryor one is a remake. I never saw the original, but I did see the remake with John Candy and Richard Pryor. I need to make another tour through that movie again. I haven't seen Idiocracy in a few months either. I need to go back and somebody showed me this headline that said that Crocs were like the most famous footwear, and I'm like, please tell me that's not a real headline. You know, I've never wanted a headline to be fake more in my whole life. Like, please tell me that's not a real headline. The problem is only created by not planning onions, potatoes, and chicken. Yeah, no kidding. Three Stooges, you owe me 20. It is kind of that way actually. That you owe me $20 kind of thing. It is pretty funny the way that works out. Though I commented on this. There was somebody who posted that whole thing about how the innkeeper owed the butcher $100, and then the butcher owed the farmer $100, and blah 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 blah, and then the prostitute owed the hotel, and it's like, and they said, see that everybody was made happy by this one guy who showed up. Like, that's actually not what happened. If you listen to the story very carefully, the innkeeper got screwed on that because he had to do all of that work and had to still maintain the room, and hopefully the person didn't bring bed bugs in with them, and had to still maintain all of it, and everybody else got made whole except that guy who had to do all the work. Like, that's not, like, it didn't work quite that way if you listen to the story. So blind we force it to be comical. Let's see here. I'd rather buy used than deal with the salesman. Yeah, no kidding. Well, and I was buying used actually, believe it or not. I was just paying cash, and they don't like that. They get all upset about that. So you have to play this little game, like, oh, I'm gonna finance it and so on. And then you finance the car, and then when you get your first monthly statement, you just order the payoff and pay it off, kind of thing. It's really it's like one of my least favorite things to do. Let's see here. Hyperinflation. I'm buying land in Nevada and near the old car factories. Yeah. Should be a nice area, actually, I would think. Bottom up inflation was stimmies. Kinda. It's not that kind of inflation. That's stimmies don't do anything, dude. $1,400 checks do nothing. 10 million is the number I said. I didn't say $1,400. $1,400 isn't even a rent payment. 10 million. $10 million per American. That's bottom up inflation, because that wipes out their debt from the bottom up and leaves the bankers with worthless paper. That's bottom up inflation. Leaves them with worthless paper. And like, well, but that'll collapse the economy. You say that as though this is worth keeping. This isn't worth keeping. None of this is worth, no. This can go ahead and collapse. American people will be just fine. Like, well, but what'll happen? You will switch to hard currency. That's what'll happen. You go to gold, silver, orange internet money. I don't care what you pick. Pick a hard currency. That's what you go to. You don't go back to the same people who created all these problems and then say print more money. Let's get away from the greenback and let's do the blueback. Let's do a CBDC. You mean another fake currency conjured out of nothing? Like, come on. The dollar's already a CBDC in all but name. Let's see here. And then let's see here. PPE is personal protective equipment. I think you're talking about the PPP loan. And they all own each other. That's correct. See here, because wages don't increase with the rate of inflation. No, they don't. That's the point. The whole point of inflation is that your wages don't increase. See, if your wages increased with the point with inflation, then there would be no point of inflation, because none of these fake billionaires could stay billionaires. They would all go broke. They would all have, because everybody else would be keeping up. This is why I keep pointing out that in a true hard money economy, a real hard money economy, an actual hard money economy, as in, for those of you, I don't say the B word here, because if I say the B word and stuff, then there's the algorithms all freak out. But let's use, for example, physical gold, just for example purposes only, okay? Physical gold, meaning not paper gold, okay, not digital gold, but like actual little yellow metal discs that somebody hands you and that they are, weight and content correct. In a hard money economy, the people who do all the work make all the money. That is just how it is. That's why bankers, brokers, and all these people, that's why they hate hard money, because none of them, the Zoom meeting people, who are the Zoom meeting people? Those are the people who show up at Jobbery. What is Jobbery? We've all seen the videos of Jobbery. Jobbery is the girl who like, hi, this is my day in the life of some tech company. So I showed up today and I went to the mimosa bar and I got a mimosa. Then I went to the puppy therapy room and I played with the puppies. And then I went to go get a massage. And then after I was done with the massage, then I answered an email and I did a Zoom meeting. And thank you. And then I went to the rooftop lounge where I drank some wine. And then that's job. Then I went and had that's jobbery. It's fake. Those are fake jobs. Those are, the people who do the real jobs and are paid in real money. Howdy, thank you. Make all the money. And the people who can't do that kind of stuff, or who don't want to, the people who don't want to work outside in the weather and so on, and they don't want to fix stuff, I go fix stuff all the time. One of my jobs is to go and make sure people have electricity. And that is not comfortable work. It's very uncomfortable, right? It's sort of like being an AC technician. Ask AC technicians how comfortable they are doing AC work out there when it's in Houston when it's like 110, but it feels like it's nuts, dude, with the heat indexes. Imagine how they feel, right? So imagine those guys if they're being paid real money, and you can't inflate their spending power back from them. You can't steal it back from them. Yeah, they're going to make all the money. That's how it works. That's how a real hard money economy actually functions. The people who do the work actually end up making all the money. And the Zoom meeting people, get out of here. The Zoom meeting people, they don't make a lot of money. They just get to do Zoom meetings and pretend to work all day long. I'm not picking on people who do Zoom meetings. I'm just pointing out, like, you get my point, okay? Because sooner or later you're going to need the guy on the ground to do all this work. I just posted a list recently, Bird site, where I listed almost, I didn't list, it's an incomplete list, but it's a list of critical infrastructure, okay? Critical infrastructure jobs. In other words, these are things that you can't automate. These are things that you have to have men, particularly men, go do. They have to physically go do this stuff. And you're not gonna automate your way out of it. You're not going to be able to create enough robots to that's just not how that works. Okay, it's not how any of that works. And those people, and a bunch of people, a few understood it, but a bunch of people went right past it because they don't understand it, because it isn't talked about. That critical infrastructure isn't talked about. To my knowledge, me and maybe 10 other guys talk about critical infrastructure, things that are actually necessary, things that if they stop, everything comes to a grinding halt very quickly. All of your technology, all the gadgets and gizmos, they just stop, and then you go into zombie apocalypse mode. Okay, so yeah, but nobody's talking about those things, because those things, particularly in the U.S., and this is another truth. A lot of those jobs are being replaced with cheaper and cheaper labor from other countries because they don't want to pay Americans. Because Americans want to actually own America. Imagine that, right? Imagine how selfish you have to be be an American and want to own a piece of the country that you're told is yours. But yeah, wages will never keep up. The whole point of that is to make sure that they never keep up with inflation. So another way to handle bottom-up inflation would be to say something like, okay, let's make minimum wage $150 an hour. And by the way, for you anti-minimum wage people out there, and I have owned you guys so many times that I'm tired of doing it. It's like you guys all fall for the same 2 or 3 traps, and I point this out to you. Never apply free market hard money principles to this economy, to a captured fiat economy. That's like showing up in hockey pads to play golf, dude. It's not even the same category of sport. So yeah, so don't apply that. That's a mistake that all the libertarians. I'm trying to be nice. It doesn't always work, but I'm trying to be nice. They make all this mistake. It's the von Mises people. All these people make all these mistakes, these economic mistakes, because they're still trying to apply these market principles to this. This is a scam. Okay, this is a scam. You're trying to apply market principles to a scam. That's why the math doesn't math. That's why you have so many people doing videos out there, these rage videos. It's Freddie Smith. Go find Freddie Smith's video. He's on TikTok. He's got a huge account, massive mega account, and he points this stuff out all the time. He's like, the math doesn't math. Like, no, it doesn't. It doesn't math, and it's not supposed to math because it's a scam. That's why. It's a scam. They're just conning you. It's like health insurance. It's a scam. They're just conning you. Insurance isn't banking done backwards, right? I don't know how many people have followed me from like way back, going back 3 years to the original, 19 sessions I did, like way back when I combed my hair. I'm not doing it again either. I'm not combing my hair for you guys, but I'm just like back in the day, I actually spent forever combing my hair and everything. Did the original 19 videos way back, and I pointed this kind of stuff out that's how this works. It's just a scam. So don't apply that. And insurance is banking done in reverse. So remember that. So, well said, Brett. Thank you very much. Strawman, like from the Wizard. I don't know. Rents would crash. Price. Yeah, they would. They absolutely would, especially if done right. So she must get. Hold on. So TikTok's having me move this little puzzle piece over. There we go. All right, I'm back. Anyway, says you must give this card back. Ask for a reason. I don't know what you mean. Birth rates and crime can be. I guess I'm not sure what we're applying it to. The lockdowns had a small jump. They did a little bit of a jump. I mean, you would think that it would, but I mean, just keep this in mind too. This is also something to keep, like most of us don't own like 30, 40 acre farms. We don't need to have 7 kids, right? I mean, I'm not telling people not to have kids. I think that it's wonderful that people have kids, but just keep that in mind. Like we don't need to have 7 or 8, 9, 10 kids. So, I love your videos and content so much. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Can you speak about, audience capture? I don't know what you mean by that. Can you elaborate a little bit? Are you talking about like the sort of ghettoization of the internet? Yeah, that is a problem. And I have there's this pet fly that I have in my garage that's flying around here. Any advice for those of us in real estate? Man, it really depends on what we're talking about and what level of real estate that you're in and stuff. And I'm sorry about the noise because one of my neighbors is mowing his lawn. But it depends on what level of real estate we're talking about. If you're talking about real estate sales, if you want my suggestion, this is just a suggestion. If you're in real estate sales, okay, and you're an agent, try to find, I don't want to say pocket listings because I know in some jurisdictions that's illegal. It's technically illegal, whatever, I don't care. I'm a career criminal, so I really don't care if it's legal or not. But I don't want to overtly say something like this. I would just say, try to find the next big move in real estate, in my opinion, is going to be younger people trying to buy land and then build a house. Because the costs just, it isn't justified to spend these $500,000-$600,000, like that's just nuts when you can buy a piece of land for, let's say, $85,000. Let's say 2, 3, 4 acres for $85,000. Again, in my area, okay, it's going to be different in different areas, and then build something and pay cash as you go, and then you don't owe any money, right? And that is, so what you would do in that situation, or what I would do in that situation, is try to find, some of these people who have land and try to get them to understand that, hey, listen, why don't we make your land profitable by breaking it up and selling it off, especially if they don't need the money right away, right? Like if they don't need the money to buy a house or something like that. This is true for boomers. Some of these people understand this stuff. Get them to break it up into smaller chunks, 2, 3, 4, 5 acre sections or something like little lots. Sell them off and get them to take, like owner financing. And the reason that's popular is because then you're removing the banks. I have everything in the world going past my house today. Anyway, do that and then market that to younger people as, hey, you can build your tiny home here. You can, like, there's tons and tons and tons and tons and tons of contractors and builders now doing videos showing people how to build a lot of stuff. And while you may not be able to build all of it yourself, you could certainly get quite a bit of it done. And you at least then know if you're being screwed or not by contractors. And so, and get them to owner finance it. So you just remove the banks altogether. This also has this other effect. It makes it to where it's almost impossible. It makes it very difficult to tax, right? So let's say you're some boomer who has, like, I don't know, 200 acres of land or something. You agree to break them all up into like 2-acre lots, for example, okay? So you've got, for easy math, we're gonna say 100, even though it's not 100 because you've got roads and easements and so on. But I mean, let's just say it's 80, okay? Well, if you're taking payments on all 80 of these little lots, monthly revenue streams are much harder to tax than a big pile of money that you would, and you get more money after the fact as well, and especially if you don't need the cash. So if you're a real estate agent, try and explain that to these people. Try and talk some sense into them and say, listen, this is actually, legacy-wise, this is actually a better way to go. You're going to give the government a whole lot less money, and that will work out for you, and it works out for them better, right? And then just keep your deed restrictions really minimal. Like, you make sure that they don't start putting all kinds of crazy HOA nonsense, and seriously, like, I think that's going to be the play to make. If I were doing it, that would be the play I would be making. If I were going after that, that would be probably the direction I would be going with it, because there are so many young people that have become so discouraged now when they see these $700,000 ridiculous houses that we all see on TikTok, built by the cheapest labor that Home Depot parking lot has to offer. And the things are falling apart in 5 years. You are better off as a young person literally building your own house and then taking the time to do the detail, do it right, and then you have a house that lasts a lot longer than these dingleberries, these ding-dongs out there building these garbage houses that are slapped together and everything's held together with liquid nails. And come on. All it is just beads of caulk everywhere that hold the house together. It's ridiculous. So that's my opinion. You do what you want to do. I'm just giving you my thought on the matter. Fair enough. Had ChatGPT draw me up a visual diagram of how many of all the money funneled through Federal Reserve. Yeah, it's probably a lot. Man, I got so much commercial property around me that dude, I grew up in an area, I was there for 20 years. So I grew up in Seattle. For those of you who remember, I grew up in Seattle back in the 80s and 90s, back before Seattle, became, well, Seattle. when it was cool. Okay, so I mean, I was, not only was I Gen X, but I was not only am I Gen X, but I'm Gen X at ground zero for Gen X. In Seattle. Back when all of that, all of that became a thing, right? And I moved away to the eastern half of the state, and that entire area, there are pieces of property that still have, to this day, I just rolled through there recently, to this day, 20 odd years later, 30 years later, that still have the same signs that say for sale or lease with the same agent. I can't believe the guy is still alive. And nobody's doing anything with this property. It's ridiculous. All of it's absurd, and there's no market to support any of it. There just isn't. Remember, your birth rates are declining. So if you have fewer and fewer kids, what does that mean? If you have fewer and fewer kids, it means that you'd have less demand for real estate. So prices should be declining properly. So, and keep in mind, it's like 4 million degrees in my garage. That's why I'm sweating. Do the rich have to hoard the wealth to hide hyperinflation? Probably a little bit to an extent, but it depends on who you're talking about with the rich. Remember, keep in mind, a lot of the rich that we know of, they're frontmen, they're middlemen, they're fake. They're fake billionaires. These are the real rich. You'll never know who the real true rich are because they're a lot smarter than that. Never underestimate these people, and I've said this for a long time. Never underestimate these people. Do not underestimate the bankers. These are very, very, very smart people. They really are. They actually are smart, and they know what they're doing, and that's why they don't run around. Like a really, truly smart, rich person doesn't flaunt that. They let a front man do that. They let somebody go out there and do that. That's the whole American gangster thing, right? Frank Lucas. That's exactly how that worked. But yeah, they might hoard quite a bit of that. But what you're asking about is velocity of money. And yeah, velocity is extremely slow. And and like even the banks, like I deal with banks too, and many of our customers aren't getting approved for deals anymore. That 6 months ago, they would have been approved instantly. And it costs us money too. Because a lot of customers have to find, because I mean, a lot of stuff that we sell is very expensive. And so because of that, it's $20,000, $30,000 stuff, they have to finance it because they don't have it in cash. And they don't want to pay 30% interest on a credit card. And I don't blame them. I don't blame them. But you get my point. It's like, yeah, so I mean, the definitely, it has slowed down quite a bit. Places like Texas are bad about overdevelopment. Well, that's what I mean. And then they jack up. That's what I mean. And then they jack up the prices. Well, that's what I mean. There isn't enough buyers for it, but they still owe all this money. Like, it's a big problem. It's used to be called the East-West scenario. Let me walk you through it in real estate for you real estate guys. And I don't want to just make it all about real estate, but real estate is kind of in the news right now. So there used to be called the East-West phenomenon. Some developer builds a neighborhood, and then everybody goes into the neighborhood, buys the houses when they're $100,000, let's say. Okay, I'm just using that for easy math. And then there's a new neighborhood that would open up right next to it. They build that, and those houses are the same price. So now you have an older house that you owe money on, but you could buy the new, and that would create sort of this problem in real estate because the banks had just lent out a bunch of money. Well, so what happened is that banks realized that they needed to have prices going up. They can't have prices going down, especially when you're lending into this. So put yourself in the banker's position. You're a banker, you're loaning somebody, some Goomba, $500,000 for a basic 322 house in some neighborhood in Texas. And then the price on the houses go down to like $275 or $250. You now have to eat. You now have a house that is underwater by $250,000, and a guy paying whatever, $3,800 a month for a house that he could just go buy. He could go right across the street, buy another house, and pay only $1,350 a month, right? Or $1,600 a month. Same house, half the price, right? Well, that's a problem. So banks realize that, and that's why they always have to have prices going up. It requires this endless inflating of real estate, this endless inflation of price. It takes a huge amount of effort to do that because prices naturally come down, right? In a hard money, real market economy, prices come down. And by the way, and let me really bake some of you that are going to freak out on this. Even wages naturally in a free market come down, but your spending power either stays static or increases, and that's actually what you want. It doesn't make any difference if your price, like again, as a business owner. If I can lower prices to be more competitive, I'm absolutely going to do that. Of course I'm going to, because I want to be competitive. And but I can't lower them so much that I can't afford to pay people, a decent amount of money. So to keep them interested and take my business seriously. So there's a balancing act. But prices tend to come down over time, especially as people kind of max out. Remember, how many. Especially if your quality is really high, if you have really high quality furniture, let's say that all the furniture in your house is like Drexel Heritage or Stickley or something like that. All of your furniture is like insane high quality Amish furniture. How much furniture do you really need? At a certain point, you don't need any more. So then the prices have to start coming down eventually. That's natural, actually. You speak well, thank you. Sent roses. You know what? And maybe someone can explain to me what exactly are roses, because I don't know what they are. So I thank you for them, but I don't know what they are. So if someone can bring me up to speed. Love your content. Thank you very much. Worse than that, Elon thinks Mars is here. That's what I'm saying. Like there's an absurdity there, and I'm not trying to pick on Elon. Elon's a pretty easy target for me, and I'm not trying to pick on him. But yeah, I mean, if you're just claiming that, this is mine, it's like the universe is mine. Come on. Someone for sure take it too far. There's an organization in India giving a hard time to banks over fake currency. They should. Indians are smart people. They are. I mean, I understand that. There's a lot of complaints there, and I get no shortage of phone calls. But but like there are people there that are actually pretty intelligent and they don't like being ripped off either. Universally speaking, you know, all BS aside, people don't like being ripped off, right? Like we generally speaking, as people, we don't mind being kind of rooked occasionally, but we don't want to be ripped off all the time. And yeah, people are getting pretty upset about that. No more corporations. They're like, yeah, no kidding. Do we have to participate? Let's see here. Hold on. I'm all over the place here. And this thing is, so TikTok, these things move really fast and I can't keep up with them. So I have to stop them and then, you know, so. What do you think about uneducated economist YouTube channel? I don't know who that is. So I'm sorry, I don't know who that is. Babysitting for children and adults. Yeah, no kidding, huh? You're probably referring to the Job Bereave thing, yeah. How do you get one of those? Dude, if you find out, you let me know, because I actually thought that would be really cool. Like, man, I mean, dude, daytime drinking on the job? I mean, it's like Mad Men. See, do the rich have to hoard the wealth inside hide hyperinflation, keeping everyone else poor? Well, okay, so I'll try and break this down really quickly here. We'll take the word rich out of it for just a second here, and let's talk about just people who can produce and people who can't produce. And people who can produce, they can just produce stuff. They can just go do things, right? They don't need to ask permission. They can just go do things. People who can't, what they're usually good at is creating wealth, what I talked about, wealth by contrast, right? It's not just the so-called rich, because what a lot of people think of is they think of some rich guy who lives in a nice house on the other side of town. That's not who we're talking about. When I talk about the rich, I'm talking about your oligarchs. This includes your politicians. This includes your heavy-duty bankers. This includes your corporate oligarchs, and of which we're only talking about a few thousand people worldwide. That's who we're talking about here. We're not talking about the guy who owns a couple of laundromats or a dry cleaner and drives a Mercedes-Benz. That's not what we're talking about here. But the people that are part of the oligarchs, yeah, the only thing they can do is create wealth by contrast. That is the creation of poverty, because all they can do is spread poverty equally. Same thing happened in the Soviet Union. It's the same thing. It's principally the same that the U.S. is going through, the West in general is going through, that the Soviets went through. It's the same basic thing, except one was called communism, the other one's called capitalism. But they both have central banks involved. If they have a central bank and they're devaluing the currency, it really doesn't matter. The difference with the Soviet Union, by the way, is that they didn't allow mass immigration. They did not allow that. And the U.S. is allowing huge amounts of mass migration. Not immigration, migration. Big difference. Let's see here. I do understand industrial, mechanical. Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah, and the guys who do this stuff for a living, the guys who are involved in all that stuff at that level, they do understand as well too, that like you really have to keep that kind of stuff going. But unfortunately, this is why I think I said it like 2-3 years ago, I pointed this out, that even the trades are going to start flooding, and they are. A lot of the trades are going to start to flood. The STEM fields are definitely going to flood. They are definitely going to flood, including medicine. Like, it's going to start flooding bad with people who do all these things, because remember, you have lessened demand because you don't have a birth rate. That was the problem 20 years ago. Remember, for my Gen Xers out there, and I know that there's probably quite a few younger people that follow them. So let me talk to the younger people. Sound off if you're under like 30. If you're under 30 and you're following me or you're watching this, just say in the comments like, hey, I'm under 30. You don't have to tell me your age or anything. Just say you're under 30. Okay, so it's hard to explain to people who are under 30 what it was like for real in the 80s and the early 90s, because back then there was this enormous amount of propaganda that was being pushed, and you can ask every Gen Xer, they will all tell you the same thing. This enormous amount of propaganda. Don't have kids. Your life is over. Oh my God. They literally called it the war on teen pregnancy. I'm in no way, to be clear, I'm in no way advocating 13-year-old kids to go get knocked up. I'm in no way advocating that. I'm saying like what they were doing was the extreme opposite, which was pushing the agenda of nobody have kids. And then it morphed into the early 2000s with it's bad for the environment, man. Don't have kids, man. It's bad for the environment. It's going to cause global douching and all. Like that's the kind of crap that happened, and everybody took it seriously. Everybody took it seriously. And then on top of that, the sad thing is then you have the more intelligent people. I use the term intelligent advisedly because I hesitate to always use that word, but they got pushed another direction, told don't have kids until you can afford them. How many of you heard that from boomers? Well, you know, these people having kids, they shouldn't be having kids until they can afford them. Well, okay, you have a whole bunch of people now who can't afford to have kids, and so now they're not going to. Right? That got pushed the other direction. So in every direction possible, you basically wiped out you wiped out the gene pool, frankly. Let's see here. It's a total scam. New York is a corporate grid. Complete grid is really a grift. Do I believe the current job reports that came out? No, not really, because there's too many job reports that come up before that say that, like, you know, that if you lose 200,000 jobs in 1 month, but then you gain 150,000 jobs the next month, and they say, look at this, we gained 150,000. No, you're still net negative 50,000 jobs. And that's assuming that they're even reporting it accurately. Who knows anymore what these people are reporting? I mean, for real, like most of this could be just completely made up whole cloth. It really is getting that bad. Democrats are so upset that they can't steal any money from the American taxpayers. Well, yeah, I mean, but it isn't just Democrats though. I mean, like it is anymore nowadays. It really doesn't matter. I do happen to think that Elon is right about that. I don't think it matters anymore. I really don't. I don't think that anymore. I would almost say at this point, this is just my cynical Gen Xer coming out, but like I almost would tell anybody, dude, if it's a Democrat or Republican, don't vote for it. On principle, don't vote for it. Go write in anything else. I don't care who you vote for. Go vote for whatever. You write in Disney characters like I do. Classic Disney characters, by the way. Yeah, do stuff like that, but don't vote for any. I mean, for real, like. These two institutions clearly don't have the American people's best interest in mind. Either side, they really don't. I don't see it. I don't see the love. Sorry. I mean, but I call it like I see it, and I don't see them either side really caring about anything other than just making sure there's more wars, more spending, more money going out. Like, I just don't see it. And the fact is that, you know, when it comes to the, you know, because I get crucified all the time, you know, particularly over on Birdsite from people like, you know, oh, well, you just don't like the Orange Man because, like, no. I want to see the mass deport. I actually wanted to see mass deportations. Dude, I'm a truck driver. And you think, I mean, ask any truck driver, any pro truck driver, they will all tell you, dude, yeah, the industry is so screwed right now. Like, I mean, it's bad. It's getting really bad. And none of the scales are open. None of the scales are open. For those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, there's a few of you that are following me that don't know what I'm talking about, but most of you that don't know what I'm talking about, it means that if you seriously wanted to do mass deportations, you would just open all the scales, pull people in and say, can you speak English? You know, can you speak, read, and write English clearly? And dude, nationwide, you'd probably pull 5,000 a day out of the trucks. A day. Just in Texas alone, you'd probably pull 400 a day. Illegals. Per day out of trucks for an indeterminate amount of time until the brokers finally just pulled all their guys out or something like that. I mean, it's like that's how bad it's gotten. So, like, I mean, if they're really serious about this, they would go after where they could find it. Instead, we're hearing about amnesty, you know, because, well, you know, the farmers don't need illegals. Farmers can hire Americans. Farmers can hire Americans. They don't need to hire a bunch of illegals. I don't buy that at all, because all it does is prop up this idea that, well, Americans are too greedy. You mean the people who live in your country and who are your countrymen, who want to own a piece of the country that you've told them is theirs? Those people are greedy because they want to own a piece of the country, and you're inflating the currency to worthlessness? Eat me. No. I don't want any house or land because I don't want to be stuck in a local economy. Yeah, I mean, there is, and yeah, I mean, I get it. Dogs love the ice cream. They do. Mine do, anyway. I make ice cream for my dogs though, so I try not to buy the store-bought stuff. Not because I'm so great or anything, but just because I like actually making ice cream, and so I make really, really, really good ice cream. I don't tell you guys that because I don't have everybody over at my house, and the house isn't very big, and I like you guys, but I don't like you that much. So, there's no pool party at my house, so let's see here. Who's my ideal president? I don't really have one. If I were to, on the spot, just kind of, to my head, I would say that I don't know that there's any one person, but I can tell you what the attitude would be. The attitude would be, look, the American people come first. Not this America first thing. That's too vague. It's too vague for my liking. I like to nail things down a bit. I'm a negotiator, and so that's what I do naturally. And so when I hear a vagary, when I hear some kind of vague statement about how let's make America great, stop. Let's talk about that. What precisely do we mean by this? And let's narrow in on that. Like, oh, okay, we want to help the American people. Great. Okay, so we're not going to be involved in any more foreign wars for anybody, for any reason. No other country in the former Ottoman Empire. In fact, the entire former Ottoman Empire itself, we're going to just ignore it altogether. And we're no longer going to have anything to do with it. That would be a good leap towards putting the American people and their interests first, for real. Like, actually, for real. Not this virtue signaling nonsense. No, I wouldn't, and I would also say that I wouldn't care about anybody, with the stock market. I don't care about the stock market. The stock market, that's past performance is not indicative of future results. People can and do lose money in the stock market. It says it in every single piece of paper that you've ever signed if you were part of the stock market. If you have any money in the stock market, you signed agreements that said you agreed to lose all of that money. So no, I don't care what happens to that. We're not going to print a bunch of money and destroy the currency so that you can pretend rich, and go get a bunch of loans. Like, no, I mean, that doesn't help the American people. So, the other thing that I would be looking for is, this is just me personally, I'd be looking for a president that could do this right here. This right here. What we're doing right now. Engagement. Not have to go to his handler and ask permission to talk about something. First of all, I find that insulting as an American. That's like, for real. I actually genuinely, I have to calm down and breathe. I'm doing it right now to not tell you what I really think about presidents going to, or any politicians going to their so-called handlers and asking if they can have an opinion on something, and then what to say about it. That Ted Cruz nonsense where he like, come on. Are you kidding me? It had to be a scripted deal? This right here would be what I want. I would want somebody who actually knew what they were doing, and they were actually thinking, they were actually in that sort of mode. That opinion of like, let's actually fix stuff here because we have some pretty big problems here. We really do. And that's what I would want to see. So I don't know that there's any one particular person, but there is definitely an attitude, and I'll know it when I see it, and I don't think I'm going to see it. Did you buy land, build house? Yes, process. 24, 26, 30. Okay, yeah, so there's a few of you out here. 23, 72, welcome. I don't get too many 72s. How do you feel about Zoran? Is that the commie guy in New York? I'm guessing. I don't follow New York politics all that closely, but I think if that's who that is, I think he's going to probably win. If that's what you're wondering, do I own with a lot of his principles? Not really. I think that a lot of them are gimmicks. I do think that he makes a solid point of pointing out to everybody. Like I did think it was really funny. This I thought was really funny. Where it is like, where are you going to go on your vacation? Your first vacation as mayor of New York, to go to the world and announce to the world your mayorness, or whatever it is, your mayorness to the world. And everybody said a country in the former Ottoman Empire. I don't know if I can say because again, the algorithms screw everything up. So we'll know what country they all said. And then he said, well, I'm not going to do any of that. I'm going to stay here because there's a lot of problems here. I'm not saying I agree with him at all. I probably disagree with him on just about every tactic that he had. But I can say that logically speaking, that's going to resonate a lot harder with people who are dealing with real problems in America than all of these ding-dongs that the Republicans are running, and all these and the Democrats for that matter, both of them. So it doesn't surprise me. It's coming. Eventually, you're going to run. I mean, for real. Eventually, you're going to run into candidates that actually will talk straight to people, and it's going to resonate harder than any of these people can possibly keep up with. And that's why they'll be canceled immediately. That's why they'll be immediately taken off of every single socialist media platform out there, instantly, all at the same time. You know, just like they did with a few other people out there we can all think of, where they were just unpersoned from the internet, just magically, all at the same time. Yeah. So anybody who's able to connect like that and resonate with people, they're not going to like that guy. They're not going to want that guy around. I'm almost 47, no kids, no prospect to have them. So is proxy MP. Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, and it's not too late for you, by the way. I mean, just keep in mind. I mean, if you're male, you know, it's not the best thing to do to have kids in your 70s, but you can do it. Clint Eastwood did it. Clint Eastwood became a dad at like 82 or something like that. I know Al Pacino did. He's like 81 or something like that, and he became a dad again. Do you consider $100 an hour a good wage in today's, you know, well, I mean, if you're talking about minimum wage, again, I've done a video on that, and I put it about $150 an hour, which was part of the gold standard. But that's where I got that from. The math wasn't arbitrary. That was me just taking the gold standard from 1971 and extrapolating that out today to show people how badly the currency has been destroyed. I don't know if you can still hear me or not. Dude's going to keep right on going with the lawn care. Let's see here. As a young person, how would you get into Orange Internet money? So this is a tough forum to bring that up in, but I will tell you this. You can go onto YT, and I would look up Marty Brent on Birdsite. Look, Marty Brent, B-R-E-N-T. And you could just follow some of his stuff, and then he's got, you know, I mean, he's a wealth of information. He's a huge wealth of information. There's also, there's a few other people on there too and stuff. And you can look them up if you go over to, if you follow me on Birdsite, you just look at who I follow, and you can kind of extrapolate from there, and you can see who these guys are. And they are better at explaining that to a new person, how to get going and everything. But I will say that Trezor makes a really good wallet. Trezor. They make a pretty good wallet. You know, and always take your Orange Internet money off the exchanges. Do not leave them on the exchanges. Never leave that stuff on the exchanges. Welcome to the Roman Empire, no kidding. Let's see here. And so yeah, that's what I got going on. Tell Schrodinger, yeah, no kidding. For those that are wondering, Schrodinger is my cat. Actually, I do have an orange cat. I don't know if you've seen him or not. I do post pictures of him periodically. He has his one eye, and he's got his ear tipped and everything. And he was a rescue kitty that we got that, and he was all mangled and stuff before we got him, and then we nursed him back to health and such. So, his name is Schrodinger. So that's all I got and everything. I don't know how long I've been going for. Probably like an hour and a half, I would guess. So that's, if there's any other last second questions, I'll answer them right fast. Other than that, I'm going to go into where there's air conditioning, because it's insane out here. Like, people just don't know. Like I saw that. I always have fun as a Texan, right? The Brits, you know, my British followers. I have friends that are over there, and they go on about the heat wave in Britain. Oh my God, like everybody in London is like bursting into flames as they're walking around, and you find the temperature is like 75. And you're like, dude, 75, man, that's like that's like, I'm gonna put a hoodie on if it's 75, man. You know, it's funny to me. Like, I grew up in Seattle, so Yeah, I mean, it never really got like, it gets warm, but it doesn't get like this is like Africa hot down here. Like this is the jungle, the tropics hot kind of thing. This is like from Predator, right? You know, like it was, that's what it's like down here. So flea market sales are down. What do you mean? Are you talking about like going to flea markets and then selling stuff? I would imagine that they would be down a little bit right now. Fireworks sales are down. So you know how I know that? Because I live in South Texas. South Texas, there are, I mean, like, there's fireworks like everywhere, right? Fireworks are a big deal down here. And usually, like 3 4th of Julys ago, 4 4th of Julys ago, 5 4th of Julys ago, dude, there would be lighting off fireworks starting at like 9 o'clock at night and going till like 3 in the morning. Like that's how long the fireworks would go on in the neighborhoods in Texas. Last night, it was over by about 10:45. They started about 9:30, went to about 10:45. People are out of money. That's what it is. They don't have, I mean, money literally going up in smoke. They don't have money for that. To, you know, well, yeah, and that's just, so it's free. I know, I get that, but I mean, it's like, no, I mean, it really is like, you know, there's people who has the money to spend $600, $700, $800 on fireworks. You know, I knew lots of friends who would do that. 5 years ago, wouldn't think twice. Go to the fireworks stand, spend $500, not even think twice about it. Now, $500, like that's a lot of money. You know, like, dude, that's like 2 bags of groceries now, man. $500, 2 bags of groceries, or buy fireworks. Yeah. I mean, that's kind of how it is. Anyway, so I hope you guys. I'll repost this and you know, to Birdside and YT and everything. So anybody who maybe had missed it, if you wanted to go back and rewatch all of this, you know, and we'll see you then. Thanks so much, very much, for all of you guys to join me, and we'll see you next time. Maybe next Saturday if I have the time. And you're welcome to say. Hardly heard any of your fireworks. Like, yeah, I know, that's what I mean. That's what I'm saying. It's not the same. It's not the same as it was 4 or 5 years ago.